Hi, it's the Chappiness guy. Welcome to today's episode of Vestibular Talks. Today's special guest is Tia. Tia, also known in Instagram as Living with an Invisible Injury, is going to talk to us about concussion, chronic migraine, and how to cope with these conditions to find your new normal again. She's also going to share with us some thoughts about living with an invisible injury, and she's got her own illness podcast where she talks about different conditions, different chronic illnesses, and she interviews people that are living and dealing with these conditions. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Find your happiness, guys. Right, Tia, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being part of this episode of Vestibular Talks. I really appreciate you being here with us today. Tia, do you mind telling us a little bit about your journey and who you are?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me. But my journey with migraine started around when I was about 10 years old, and I started having migraine attacks pretty occasionally. They weren't that often. I would probably get a migraine attack once a month, maybe a little bit less than that. And I was having them from the age of 10 to 15. And I didn't really think about like anything of it. I just kind of thought it was maybe hormonal, growing up, that kind of thing. But they were pretty painful, that kind of migraine thing. And I was always throwing up from them, things like that. And then when I was 15, I sustained two concussions within 4 months. And I had a pretty rough recovery from those. It took me a really long time to recover. I sustained post-concussion syndrome, and that was really hard for me physically, emotionally, and mentally. And that was kind of the whole start to me dealing with chronic migraine. At the time, I was dealing with persistent headaches that then developed into chronic migraine. So for me, I was about like 16 or 17 when I was diagnosed with chronic migraine, and I really had never heard of chronic migraine. I, you know, had been in this like tough journey of having about 28 migraine attacks a month.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really difficult. And because I had my concussions, I was out of school for a long time because at the time, it was about 4 years ago now, the protocol for concussions was you have to rest. You have to
Yes.
stay in bed and rest. Now that's not really the answer for, most doctors and stuff, but I was told to rest. So I, was laying in bed. I wasn't able to, see really any friends or have any interactions. I wasn't able to go on to any like TV or phone or read a book or do any homework. And that was really difficult, especially being a teenager. I was wanting to be social and get out and do things, of course. And that was really difficult. And so the headaches started getting worse and worse. And then they developed into the migraine attacks. And I was having a lot more different symptoms, which was a lot difficult. And then I started developing some mental health issues, which was a lot hard, which was difficult
Oh, yeah.
for many of us that deal with migraine and concussions in general. That's a huge factor. But yeah, my journey with migraine has definitely been difficult, and it has been hard to find, the doctors to help. For sure. I live in Ontario, Canada, in a smaller town, and it has been really difficult for me to find people that want to help me. Um, I have seen a neurologist, but
Mhm.
there is no headache specialist in my area, which has made it really difficult. So I know I'm kind of all over the place here, but going
No,
back to getting diagnosed with a chronic migraine, I was diagnosed around 16, 17, and I saw the neurologist. And I remember when he told me, no, yeah, you have chronic migraine. And I was like, what's that? Like, I just knew that I was in pain every day, but I didn't really know what that meant, what
Yeah.
treatment options I could, have. And at the time, I was on amitriptyline from
Hmm.
my concussions, and he didn't really, give me any sort of direction. It was just, here, this is your diagnosis, kind of go figure it out. So I had
Yeah.
to
So what
get
they.
on, yeah, I had to get on the good old Google and search chronic migraine. And I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it was definitely a difficult journey, but I have, learned a lot in these last few years. And I've tried a lot of things as well.
Okay. Really interesting facts what you're saying. Let's rewind a little bit back to when you were 10 years old. So when you were about 10,
Mhm.
apparently it's very common for teenagers to have these migraines, but because they are young, they don't really pay attention to them. Like they're like, oh well, whatever. I have a kind of a pressure in my head or headache, but they keep going on with their day. But it's
Yeah.
apparently very common for people developing to have migraines. They do seem to link it to hormones, the hormonal changes, and so that could have been a factor for you. But of course, having those concussions made it way more, like it amplified it. Something that you said about, yes, chronic migraines, that's something that people need to understand. There are episodic migraines where people have symptoms or headaches for a couple of days of the month. But when you're having one like you, that is basically 28 days of the month, you're feeling the symptoms. That is a chronic state. And what people don't seem to realize is that when you're in a chronic state, your body kind of like stays in that perpetual state for long periods of time. It's not like people, oh, you have a headache and then it goes away the next day and you're good, but back to normal.
Yeah.
It's not like you have this consistent headache that just won't go away with medication, with resting, with eating different foods. Like it just won't go away. So I feel your pain because you being so young and having to go through this intense chronic condition is quite harsh. Tia, also I love the fact that you're Canadian. Hey, Canada too. I'm in Calgary, so that's good. Tia, when you started the amitriptyline, so amitriptyline is a medication that they prescribe often for the prevention of migraines, and also for the mental state of depression. Because, like you mentioned, when we are in a state of pain, in a state of illness, especially chronic illness, our mental health takes a beating. Like we feel
Yeah.
depressed, we cry, we feel alone, we feel like no one understands what we're going through. We feel hopeless because we're like, am I ever going to get better and have a normal life? So amitriptyline is a good first class medicine for these conditions. When you were taking it, did you experience any improvements or any side effects on it?
So in the beginning, I did experience some improvements, and I would say it helped for the first 5-ish months.
Okay.
And then I started going downhill again. So the funny thing with me, and I think some other people can relate to this, is whenever I try something, whether it's medication or a holistic approach, I am good for like 5 to 6 months. It really, really works. And then I go downhill again. And then I try something else and it's really good. And then I go downhill again. So, yeah, it's been a battle with me in the trial and error, but
Yeah, trying
yeah.
to find something that stays working consistently. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's true. Um, Besides the actual headache itself, do you experience any other symptoms? Like, for example, in my case, I get vertigo and dizziness. I get a visual disturbances, what they call visual snow. So I see like spots everywhere, or it's almost like, when you look at a light bulb, and then you look away and you see like all these little figures in your vision. That's what happens to me. Have you experienced anything similar?
Yes, I have. So the funny thing is, for the longest time, I never experienced any vestibular symptoms
Mhm.
until the last sort of 9 months. And it has been such a hard new trial, I guess. And I didn't realize that people with, vestibular migraine, what they go through until I was experiencing some of the symptoms. And I would say that my symptoms are not maybe as severe as some other people's, but I have definitely experienced a lot of, nausea, dizziness, vertigo, like feeling like I'm spinning through 60 or I'm rocking on a boat.
Mhm.
This last year I have been throwing up a lot more from being dizzy and having a lot of vertigo spells. Being I was back in Toronto for school and I was taking, city transit a lot, and being on the bus was so hard for me because I
Oh,
was
yes.
just getting rocked back and forth. And there was one time where I had to get off and I threw up because I was just, getting pushed back and forth so much.
Yeah.
So that has been very difficult. And it has been kind of something that I'm trying to figure out because before I had my concussions, I experienced for about a month some terrible dizziness and vertigo spells that I had no idea where they came from. They came out of the blue. I was 15 and I just got hit one day with terrible vertigo. I was at school and I could barely walk up the stairs. I was just, feeling so nauseous, and it was like so weird. And I, went to my chiropractor and she did, an Epley maneuver, and nobody could really figure out what was going on with me. And then I got my concussions and the vertigo kind of subsided for a while. And I just kind of put it to the side, never really
Yeah.
knew what was going on. And then this last year, I have, got hit again with these vestibular symptoms, which I don't know what it could be related to. But then I kind of got this realization that was like, maybe it is something related to migraine.
It is. It is. You're very right, and I'm sorry you're experiencing that because it sucks. I
Yeah,
would not wish that on anybody. Like the
definitely.
sensation of dizziness is such an annoying sensation, and most doctors kind of like brush it off. They're like, "Oh, you're dizzy. Well, kind of like try to rest and see if it gets better." And you're like, "What? What is that? Like, what kind of help is that?"
Exactly.
So it is very frustrating. And the monster that migraine is, most people don't comprehend it because
Yeah.
a lot of people assume, oh, it is a headache, it's a strong headache that you get every now and then. It is not just a headache. Like you
Yeah.
get a lot of neurological symptoms, you get a lot of you get depression, you get anxiety, you get the headache itself. You can get how does it call it when your stomach, like you cannot pass any food because you try to eat and you just want to throw it up. You feel nauseous all the time, you don't digest properly. Migraine controls so many aspects of our bodies that people have no idea the depth of the actual condition itself. So for you to be experiencing this at such a young age, I almost feel so angry that you got it because it's like such a serious. It's a serious. People underestimate it, but it's such a serious condition, and it goes up and down. It goes up and down. Like you get moments of light when you're like, yes, I'm feeling better. Maybe
Mm.
the medication is helping. Maybe I'm doing something right, and all of a sudden, bam, you crash again, and people are like, oh well, you seem to be always sick, and you're like, it's not my fault. It is not my fault.
Yeah.
So yes, like I completely understand what you're going through, and the frustration that comes along with this. So now, Tia, you talked to the neurologist. You said that he's not a specialist, a headache specialist in your town. So does your doctor kind of like just try to manage your symptoms with treatment and medication, or what do you do?
So I've tried many things. So currently I am still on the amitriptyline and I'm also on topiramate.
Okay.
And a funny thing, talking about all the vertigo and dizziness and everything, when I was telling my neurologist about the vertigo and everything that I was experiencing, he said, well, maybe it's just a side effect from the medication. And I was like, yeah, it could be, but I was like, no, I know that this is something more. Like when you feel it in your gut and you're experiencing this pretty much every day and you can't get out of bed, it's something more. But anyways, I've tried, massage therapy, chiropractic, hair acupuncture, anti-inflammatory diet. Um, there are many things I can't even think of off the top of my head, but I have tried a lot of things. Some of them have worked for small periods of time, and then some don't.
Mhm.
Um, I've also tried, some mindfulness, meditation, yoga, just to, reduce stress because stress can be a trigger for me.
Yes.
But yeah, at the end of the day, medication is my main thing. I actually am currently looking into Botox
Oh,
for myself. I have never tried it, but it is something that I am looking into because I am kind of going into the more chronic cycle again. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey, but I'm just kind of keep fighting for myself.
of course. Yeah, no, that's great. And from from what I understand, the people that I've spoken to in previous interviews, that combo of amitriptyline and topamax seems to be helpful. Seems to
Mhm.
be helping them. Obviously, it doesn't take the condition away, but it does make it a little bit more manageable in a day-to-day basis. So hopefully you do find some relief with that, and now with the Botox, that might be a good option as well. Tia, is anybody else in your family, has anybody else suffering from migraines, or you're kind of like the first person that has a chronic migraine?
So nobody in my direct family has migraine, like not my parents or my sister, but I do have an aunt that has migraine.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's been always kind of curious to me. I do know that like both your parents don't have to have migraine for you to have
Yeah.
migraine. But yeah, it's always been interesting. Like I'm always curious, like if I'll ever pass migraine down to my future kids. It's always
Yeah.
kind of a fear of mine, but yeah,
Yeah. It's something that I also think about. I have a son, he's 14, and I am like, God, please don't let him have this because it's
yeah.
really debilitating. Tia, now when you had the concussions, um, so I think from what you the story that you told us at the beginning of the episode, the concussions kind of like three chronic consistent migraine episodes. How do you fully recover, or how do you recover from these concussions besides the fact that they told you to rest? Like, did they promote any other sort of therapy like physiotherapy or visual therapy or anything to kind of like help your brain adapt again?
Okay, so that's kind of interesting for myself. So it's kind of frustrating because I personally was never given a proper treatment for my concussions. There are many people who are, are given vision therapy or physiotherapy, and I was never really given anything. I was on my own. A lot of it, I, saw a concussion specialist, and it was frustrating. He promised me, he was like, I'll get you better. And he never did. And I still like hear those words in the back of my head. And even though it's been over 4 years, I still hear that like kind of in my head, like, oh, I promise you I'll get you better. And it's just like, it's really discouraging. Um, I was never, had any treatment or help to my neck, which I had whiplash injury. No one ever looked at my neck, which was really frustrating. And I don't want to, put any like harm or pressure on my healthcare providers, but it's frustrating when you sustain a brain injury and no one really provides you with help.
When you feel neglected, yes, of course. Do you think that they didn't provide you with the proper tools for healing because it's a small town, or do you think that is because maybe the doctors themselves are ignorant about how to proceed with treatment, or do you think that they were just completely in a rush of like, hey, this girl is young, she's fit, she's gonna get better on her own, kind of like deal with it yourself? What do you think?
I think it could be a mix of things, but I definitely think that living in a small town has something to do with it. I know that many people where I live have, had their fair share of concussions and they have to leave the city to go and get proper treatment. which is really frustrating because, it costs money, it costs time to, get off work and get off school if you're still in school and things like that. So I, never did that. And I actually am getting a referral. Well, I have a referral to a headache specialist in the Toronto area, which
Okay.
I'm finally excited about. But I really wish that I did take the time to do that with my concussions because maybe I would have had a faster recovery. But yeah, it's really frustrating because, obviously I always think about this like if I didn't have migraine as, my neurological disease, maybe I would have not had a slower recovery with the
Yeah.
concussions. And of course, I didn't really think of, having myself, like, I didn't know that I had migraine when I had the concussions.
Mhm.
So it's always like what plays into each other. But it's definitely frustrating because I felt like I missed out on a lot of years of my
Yeah.
life. I was in high school and I missed out on a lot of opportunities and I was in pain a lot, but
Yeah. But don't ever blame yourself. Like this is not your fault.
yeah,
Like this is, and especially because you didn't know, like you didn't know any better,
yeah,
so you couldn't have the thing. Maybe both are the concussion and the migraines are linked, and they are slowing the healing process because they keep kind of like feeding and triggering each other. So you didn't know. So if anybody's the victim here or is innocent, like it's you. So don't never think that you're the blame. The other thing that you did say that I was like, you got it right on, like you hit the nail right on the head. When you said the doctor promised you to get better. Many of us, and not only with doctors, I've experienced it with chiropractors, with physiotherapists, and don't get me wrong, they're great. There are
mhm,
great people that do what they do and they know their stuff. But I've had many that said, "Oh, I guarantee you that after 8 sessions, you'll be completely healed." And I was like, "Sure." So something that is true here is that chronic illness is not cheap. It's
yeah,
not cheap at all. Like even in Canada, they were blessed with a free health system. Not everything is free. Like a lot of the
yeah,
medications you have to pay for, a lot of the specialist appointments you have to pay for, the transportation to get there, the days of work that you're missing, plus going to like Kairos and things that are not covered, you have to pay for that. So chronic illness is extremely expensive. It's not cheap at all. So I've had many of those doctors that told me, I guarantee you you're gonna get better. And at the end of the therapy or the treatment, and you still not better, you blame yourself because you're like, is it me? Like, why am I not getting better if this guy who's supposed to be the expert is telling me that he would have gotten me better? So when you said that about the doctor promising you, I was like, that's such a, excuse my language, such a jerk ass move because he shouldn't have promised you because he doesn't have the power to determine whether or not you're gonna be healed. Like he can give you hope, great, but then to tell you that he's gonna promise you, I've lived that as well, Tia, and it breaks you inside because you start to feel like you're damaged. You're like, am I
yeah,
damaged? Like, am I not fixable? So I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Tia,
definitely.
in a more upbeat note, uh, what kind of things do you do in a daily basis? Like, what's your routine to whenever you're feeling like symptoms or when you're feeling low and mellow? What is kind of your go-to therapies on your own to uplift your spirit again?
Okay, so the first thing that I usually do is I'll usually just relax, play a podcast, play some relaxing music. And the thing that I've been doing lately is I've been using a Cephali device that
Mm,
I've used, and that's what I've really been using in my treatment plan and in my migraine toolkit that has really helped me with managing my attacks.
yeah,
So that's kind of what I've used on my day-to-day basis. But yeah, I just kind of maybe go for a walk, um, just kind of lay low and just relax, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, that's true. Tia, what does the future hold for Tia?
The future holds, what does the future hold for me? Well, I'm currently in massage therapy school,
Nice.
so I would love to, have my own practice or, just make sure that I am able to care for my patients in a way that I wasn't able to be cared for in the past. And I know that with massage therapy, you can't ever help people or cure people. I don't ever like to say cure, but I want to make sure that I am able to help manage people that live with concussions or whiplash injury or that deal with headaches or migraines. And so, you know, I like to like there's lots of people that are massage therapists and they will say, massage therapy will, help solve your migraine attacks. And I don't like to say that because I do use massage therapy and it doesn't ever, solve my migraine attacks, but it helps, calm my shoulders, get rid
Mhm.
of the tension. And so it can be a way to help manage some
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
pain that we experience. So I want to just, help reduce people's pain in their lives. And that's kind of what the future holds for me, become a massage therapist and, be able to get my hands on some new medications in the future.
yeah, awesome. Uh, Tia, this channel is called Find Your Chappiness. So it means find your happiness. How does Tia find her chappiness?
I would say, spending time with family and friends and spending lots of time outdoors, hiking, going to the lake.
Yeah, that's true. Connecting with nature is it's a big one for me too. It
Yeah,
just kind of like grounds you again to a more calm state. Uh,
definitely.
Tia, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
So everyone can find me on Instagram at Living with an Invisible Injury, or you can find me on my podcast at Living with an Invisible Injury. You can search that on any podcast platform, but you can also find it on my Instagram page in my bio.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us and to raise some awareness and to teach us about your own journey. So I do hope that the future does hold for you a lot of healing, a lot of whether it is with new medication, new treatment, or with your body itself, eventually, like learning to decrease the symptoms and the intensity of the chronic state. Hopefully, that's fingers crossed. That's something that I want for all of us to eventually get better. And hey, you have a friend here in Calgary, Canada. So if you ever want to come visit this way, please do.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right, bye, Tia.
Bye.